Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, very much for coming today. So, ladies and gentlemen, the panel debate 2013 is commencing, and we would very much like to introduce Clement Kjersgaard. But first, if you have any questions during the debate, we would please like you to raise your hand. And Clement, he will control the questions. Also, I have to announce that this panel debate will be recorded, so that's just so that all of you know that. So, without further ado, writer and television host, Clement Kjersgaard.
All right. Hey! Thank you so much. Now, is the sound all right? Can everyone hear me? All right, excellent. Now, if the sound fails at any point, you really won't want to miss a word I say, okay? So please complain, raise your hands as soon as you can feel that the sound disappears. The same, of course, goes for the rest of the panel. Now, we have about an hour and a half, and we have an hour and a half really to share ideas and to share questions. We've asked the panel not only to talk about their experiences when it comes to today's theme, embracing the modern consumer. But indeed, we've also asked them to ask each other questions. And the most important thing, what will happen and what will commence in a few minutes, once we've heard a few remarks from the panel to start us off, is that we will give you the opportunity to ask questions of these people. So this really is a unique chance to hear not only what they are doing, but also how they are changing what they are doing in terms of doing business. So please now, for starters, join me in welcoming our distinguished panel. They will enter from both sides, and they will take the tables as I introduce them. Ladies and gentlemen, from Arla, Hanne Søndergaard; from the Boston Consulting Group, Maj-Britt Poulsen; from the Carlsberg Group, Jens Jermin; from H&M, Christel Friis Mikkelsen; from Scandinavian Tobacco, Lars Vestberg; and from Velux, Jakob Skamby. Ladies and gentlemen. And before we move to the panelists alphabetically, let me just take this opportunity on behalf, I think I speak both on behalf of myself and on behalf of the rest of the panel, in saying that it is always a great experience to come and visit you guys here at CBS. I really, honestly, emphatically don't know whether Denmark has a future, but I do know if we do, it'll be run by you guys. And with that, we will introduce today's first speaker. What we've asked them to do, of course, is to talk about the theme and introduce their company to you and give us a glimpse of how they work with these questions and these challenges. Hanne Søndergaard from Arla, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me? Thank you. So my name is Hanne. I've worked for Arla for 24 years, most of my time in the UK, but now responsible for our global team sitting in Aarhus. We work with consumer. Today's theme is modern consumers. I guess we try to understand today's consumer and the needs as they are developing across not just Europe, but also our growth markets, particularly in China and Middle East and Russia. We can see that where quality, convenience, health has been on the agenda for a number of years, we saw the whole green debate coming up just before the financial crisis. It slowed down a little bit, but we can see it coming back, and I think the financial crisis will define how quickly it comes back and with what momentum. We can see consumer needs being fairly consistent across markets. Consumer typologies vary a lot across markets, but we can see the needs being fairly consistent across markets, and probably also more consistent over time. The way that people satisfy those needs vary a lot. The size of those needs vary a lot across markets. But the basic needs of happiness, of healthiness, of being successful, etc., they're all there across the markets that we are working on. And I think the change that we see is in our business is how we satisfy those needs. And that's what develops our business, is how we satisfy those needs through our brands on a day-to-day basis. Our aim as Arla is to satisfy those needs increasingly on a global level, so not country by country, but globally across the markets we focus on.
Yes, please.
Hello everybody, my name is Maj-Britt and I'm a partner in the Boston Consulting Group. I hope you can all hear me. I've been with BCG for 9 years, and before that I actually graduated from this institution. So I was a finance student here. I'm very happy to be back. I've also been a part of the case competition previously. So in BCG, consumer research means a lot to us. So every year we do our own research to stay relevant for our clients. We also do a lot of research together with clients, like the people, the executives you see here. Last year, we interviewed 22,000 consumers in 16 countries. There are 2 topics that I would like to convey today to you. There's a lot of trends coming up that we researched, but there are 2 particularly strong ones. The first is the digital transformation. So digital, what does that mean? It means a lot of things, but it means that consumers are mobile, they are online everywhere, no matter where they are, even when they are on vacation. It also means a concept that we call on demand. So consumers, they expect to buy everything, no matter where they are in the world, and to get it delivered exactly where they want to. And finally, it's very personalized. So it means that the consumer, in our views, have become more fussy, more demanding, but also more interesting to work with for our clients and for BCG. So the second trend that I would like to highlight is what we call considered consumption. So what do we mean with that? We mean in this world where we still have a lot of anxiety, consumers are scared, they don't spend a lot of money. We have a recession that has been going on for 5 years. People have gone from buying looking good products to buying feel-good products. Feel-good products are healthy products, it's green products, it's local products. So that's the second one I would like to highlight that I think is very important.
All right, excellent. Jens? There we go.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, my name is Jens. Very happy to be here, it's a pleasure. I work for Carlsberg. And Carlsberg is competing in a quite tough global environment. So basically, my colleague's job is to build the brand, to create the best and highest possible love for the brand, so that you guys become, ambassadors of our brands and prefer our brands over the competition. And the competition is pretty strong out there. And we do believe that the way that we, the people, communicate in the digital age is completely rewriting the rules of market engagement. So when we say market engagement, we mean the way companies and brands are engaging its markets, its customers. The one key word is change. Things are changing with really rapid speed. So of course our challenges is to embrace those changes as an organization in terms of really understanding what's going on, have a firm strategy in order to not have our head spinning and be running after the next shiny object. And then of course to be able to land the organization in the new era. So to be able to develop our organization, to develop our new capabilities internally, for us to be able to manage and embrace this new world of opportunities that we see.
All right, excellent. Christel, please.
Hello, my name is Christel. I'm a country manager for H&M Denmark. I'm very happy to be here today. Fashion is fast-paced industry, and of course it's a challenge continuously to meet and try to exceed customers' demands and expectations. And but at the same time, this is what we have been dealing with for more than 60 years. Fashion has always been fast and has always been about changing. And but now we feel that it's even faster. It's getting faster and faster. Engaging with the modern consumer is like dancing. You have to keep tight. Sometimes it's you have to lead, and sometimes you have to follow. Interaction with the consumer is important. It's really important. So this is all for me.
All right, excellent. Lars?
Yeah, sure, thanks. Okay, my name is Lars. I've been working for Scandinavian Tobacco Group for the last 6 years, and prior to that, I spent another 20 years in fast-moving consumer goods. But maybe as we engage in the dialogue around the modern consumer, I want to, at least from a tobacco standpoint, make a couple of things clear, because actually we think that smoking is a very personal choice, and it's a choice that should be made by adults only. So, and I think that is a foundation for which we really need to steer this dialogue. Secondly, it is not really our business to convert non-smokers into non-smokers. And the reason why I mentioned this already so early on is that these two principles are actually pretty fundamental to the way we run our business, to the way we build our business. Having said all of that, we are today a small global company that employs around 9,000 people. We have a turnover of about 6 billion. We are global leaders in cigars. We are global leaders in pipe tobacco. Now, our real challenge is that if you look at the global consumption of tobacco, there's around 5,500 billion cigarettes smoked in the world every year. And 3 years ago, we saw the first decline in annual cigarette consumption, which was also the first year we saw a decline in global tobacco consumption. And that means that our categories currently represent less than 1% of the total tobacco consumption in the world. Now, and that means our key challenges, they are really, how do we, going forward, attract an increasing amount of cigarette smokers into our categories? How is it, what do we have to do to get some of those guys who enjoy a cigarette, to turn some of those into a cigar or a pipe tobacco every now and then? Secondly, how do we maintain our brands and their relevance and the product relevance to those existing smokers that we have in an environment where regulation is an ever-increasing factor we need to think about? Because it's not really only what the consumers do, it is very much also about the initiatives that are put in place from various politicians around the world. And in that context, how do you keep building brands? How do you keep building an emotional bond with your consumers over time, again, within the constraints of having those regulations to deal with? All right, thanks.
All right, excellent. Jakob Skamby, please.
Good afternoon. Jakob Skamby is my name. I am from the Velux Group, where I head the commercial organization, sales and marketing in general terms. I have a past with, among others, smart people in BCG, but it was a long time ago. You were very young then.
Thank you.
That was a nice start, wasn't it? In the brief we had here, we were asked to debate the challenge of the modern consumer. And yeah, it may be slightly a challenge, but it's much more an opportunity, I think, for all of us, certainly for us in Velux. Many reasons for that. Let me name 3. Never before in the history of man have consumers demanded that companies are ethical. All of them. Never before. Never before have consumers demanded that companies act environmentally sustainable. Never before. It was totally different 10 years ago. It will be even more so 10 years from now. And thirdly, and that's, I think, has surprised some people compared to where they were 5-10 years ago. Just as we thought everybody was going global, you're all global, you're from everywhere, you are on online, you're affluent, you're a member of communities here and there. You don't necessarily just define yourself with the country of origin. More global. The beauty of it is you're also more local, or more precisely, more individual. I'm sure you all know, some of you know, the app called Track My Macca. Have you seen that? You go into McDonald's, it's in Australia, but it'll come here. You go into McDonald's, you push the app, and it'll tell you who provided the beef in your hamburger, who provided the lettuce. And you can click and connect with a farmer. You can chat with him if he's online, which he is. That's individualization. I don't just buy a Big Mac. I buy a Big Mac and I decompose it, and I have preferences and choices within that. I love that example. It's more an opportunity than it is a threat, because it makes the world a better place. It's part of, if you like, civilization development. Okay, back to Earth. What does it mean for us at Velux? It's great. We're in a blessed position, because what we do on those 3 dimensions, sustainability, that's what we're about. We sell daylight and fresh air through the roof. It's comfortable. It's also, and nice and pretty and all that, it's also very good. Energy consumption in the world, 40% of that comes from buildings. Now, we don't have time for all the technical descriptions here, but a couple of Velux windows, or better, 4 or 6, they can do wonders for your interior environment, your energy consumption, heating and cooling. So that's great. We've done that for decades. We will keep doing that. And consumers value it more and more. Second, ethical. We had a great founder who defined model company ambition. In short, it's about treating everybody just a little bit better than most other companies. No offense, guys. We don't do it necessarily, but we try. Okay? Thirdly, global and local. A lot of you will be working abroad, but many of you hopefully will be working in the few Danish companies that are still left. And you will find when you get into management, I'm sure you will find that striking the balance between local and global, that's going to be your daytime job. And we've done that for years. We have global product platforms, and we have local relations. And we won't go to one side more than the other in the future. We will become more global. Information technology, product technology, blah, 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 blah. We will also become more and more local. Our local customers, installers, craftsmen, architects, they're very local. They will be even more local. They will also track a Macca, if you like. So we look forward to that. A few challenges, but mainly opportunities. Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much for those presentations, all 6 of you. Let me just start with you, Lars, and you made the point about consumer morality, essentially. Is it true that this is changing? I mean, to what extent do we all have an image that we are more critical, that we are more moral, that we are more conscious in our consumption decisions today than people were 20 years or 30 years ago? And to what extent is this really just a story and narrative that we tell ourselves, but when it comes right down to it, we are as driven by irrational concerns, we are as motivated by financial concerns, and many much less sort of admirable things than we believe we are?
Well, I think we see it. I think we see it, and we see it in the sales numbers. We see it when we do the research. Sure, financial considerations remain an important part of the overall decision considerations that the consumer has to do.
Yeah.
Particularly in times when they're tough. If you look at Southern Europe, there's no doubt money matters. It certainly does, and that is a constant compromise. If you look to regions in the world, there's a little less hard hit than the current financial situations. We see organic products growing. We see certainly the desire. You touched on it also. What did you call it? The considerate consumer. We see it in the product mix in our business. We see organic tobaccos. We see biodegradable packaging becoming more relevant. We see locally grown products being used more and more. I think it's there. I think it's very real.
Maj-Britt, is this true? I mean, is this genuine? Is it that people are more conscious about their choices and the implications and the consequences? Or is this true, the image that Lars paints for us when he's saying this has an actual impact, you can measure it, and the consumer simply is different?
Yes, I can very much confirm that. And the research that we've done not only shows it here in Scandinavia or in wealthy countries, we can also go to China, and people are talking about local, they're talking about being conscious. So it's also something to do with the economic environment, because being local means that I support the local retailers, I support the local suppliers in my environment. So we can definitely also see that.
And are you saying that this will return to full force after the financial crisis? I mean, we had the point earlier from Arla that really there was the green tendency already there. There was an ecological consciousness before the financial crisis. Are we getting back to that? Is it changing? How is the financial crisis impacting that, you think?
Yeah. It's a very good question, because of course also our clients are asking us, is this something that is exactly here to stay, or can we expect to go back to normal? But we would say this is the new normal. This is a new consumer. So if we're looking into industries, I called it before, looking good versus feel good. So we see people spend less on cars.
Oh.
Yep.
Sorry. I think Jakob disagreed with me, but people do spend less on themselves, and they want to do good for their kids, and something healthy for the environment. And that there we go back to the green agenda, the sustainability. And as a company today, you can't live without having these values in your mission statement, I would say.
All right, yeah, we'll take all of you, please.
I think definitely what we see is some do and some don't.
All right.
So I don't think you can say that everyone does. I don't think it matters. I don't think sustainability and you know, where the product comes from matters to everyone. I think for some consumers it matters, and for others it doesn't. So in the work that we are doing, we definitely see an importance in segmenting the market according to the needs of different groups. And I think what the financial crisis has done is polarize the market a lot more.
All right.
So you see some people being much more conscious of money, much more or having to be more conscious of what they spend. But you also see some people that continue to develop the demand for understanding where does the brand come from, where does the product come from.
And so what you're saying, I guess, is that with a company the size of your company, you really have to do both.
Correct.
That there is not a choice to be made. I mean, that's a very different strategy, isn't it? I mean, it's a very different strategy from starting out saying we have two groups here, they are distinct, they might even be moving apart, and we need different products and we need different strategies for them, rather than saying everything we do needs to sort of address the consumer as one. Could you just say a few more things about how you approach it?
I think that's what, to us, that's what the financial crisis has very much done. I think it has polarized consumers more. And needs are polarizing more. We are seeing similar needs across markets, as I said before, but we are seeing that, and again I would go with what was said earlier, that that's an opportunity. The opportunity, I think, is in understanding, you know, how those needs are polarizing.
All right, Kreisel?
We are taking a new initiative this week. On Friday, we are starting something we call garment collecting. And this is in all stores in Denmark and in selected stores all over the world, in 1,500 stores, where we interact with our customers. And we invite them to bring bags of worn garments. And we give a voucher of 15% on next item they buy. I think it's very important to interact with the consumers, and this is all kind of clothes. It's not only from H&M; it's from all brands. It can be full of holes. It can be only one sock in one color, one sock in another color. We can use everything, and we reuse it and recycle it. We don't earn anything at all. The profit goes somewhere else. And this is to get in contact with all the customers that sometimes just pour out old clothes as garbage.
Yeah.
So I think this is, I'm very much looking forward to this initiative. And it's starting on Friday.
Is this a sort of one-off event, or is this something where you were saying this could be part of how we operate, this could be community building?
Absolutely. We have a goal of closing the loop. And this is, we've been working with sustainability for more than 20 years. And we haven't been talking that much about it, but now we decided to interact directly with the customers.
All right, Jens, and then it's Jacob. Jens?
So we don't think it's a question of whether we should do it or not. I think we're working with a concept of the people has the power of the people. With the rise of the social media platforms, transparency is just a must. And CSR is a natural integrated part of the way the company and the brand comes across.
All right, let's return to some of those questions later. Let me just keep hold of the point that Hannah made. She's saying the market essentially is becoming polarized. Yes, you have people who are very conscious and very attentive to the consumption choices they make, and we have other people who, because of the financial crisis, are basically oriented towards price and little else. Can you recognize that image of a market being polarized and moving in two directions at the same time?
Yeah, we do recognize those trends.
Yeah.
And our job is, of course, to activate and talk to our consumers, participate in conversations. In no matter topic they really want to participate with us in. So we need to be prepared to be able to have those conversations with our consumers, whether they are there or they are not there. So, or they are interested in CSR or not interested in CSR. We need to be equipped.
Are you saying, Hannah, do you think that this is a permanent fixture? I mean, will it remain this way? Because a lot of the theories about the modern consumer and a lot about this notion that things are really developing in one direction only would lead us to believe that people will only become more critical and more conscious. Are you sort of saying that you don't believe that you will think that it will remain a permanent fixture of the market, that you have consumers who are in fact, of course, indeed critical and maybe even growing more critical, living perfectly happily alongside those who are making very different consumption choices indeed?
Sorry, I think that underlying everything, there is definitely, as being said, more interest in the responsibilities that companies like ours are taking.
Yeah.
And transparency of being able to trust the company that you buy from. But I think the fact that people have different needs in different categories, and those needs are polarizing more, we definitely see that as something that is here to stay.
All right, excellent. Before I give the floor to Jens and Lars as well? Yes. Okay, but Jens, let me just mention that in a couple of seconds we will go to you guys. So be ready to raise your hands if you have questions, comments for the panel. Jacob, please.
Now, by definition, it's hard to disagree with the segmentation, individualization. I just mentioned that. If there's one exception, it's on environment. There's an Edelman report that asks consumers, what do you weigh of importance when you make consumer choices? Highest ranking in the Western world is ethical and sustainable. About 65% of consumers rate that the highest. In Europe. What do you think the number is in Asia, in Africa? It's 80 plus. And you go, at least that's their intention. A big part of also their action. This movement is so big. Right now we have a temporary stop in Western Europe, but it'll come back. And the point for companies is, whatever you do, I would almost say unsegmented. It's providing solutions that are ethical and that are environmentally sustainable. And that's point number one. And two, environmentally sustainable, the requirements for companies in order to give something real. Consumers are very smart. They will see through greenwashing. It better be really real. It better be your core business.
All right, excellent. Questions, comments from the floor? If you have one, please raise your hand and we will have a microphone brought to you immediately. Yes, here we go. There's a gentleman here. If you stand up, sir. And our format will be that you introduce yourself, state your name, and then your question, please.
Right. My name is Casper, and I'm a part of this CBS Case Competition. I want to just open up the floor here. All of you guys are in big companies within your category. So how do you mix the individualization of the consumer and the customization with the growing need of consolidating your production within bigger and bigger facilities?
All right, excellent question. Jakob, and then Lars. Jakob first.
Excellent question. 20 years ago, some companies would have argued, no, we can't invest in more environmental friendly production. It's expensive. We have to compete against Eastern European factories and so forth. You don't hear that a lot more, do you? In fact, really, a few people then said, the more we invest, the better we're off. Not only to the consumer, the environment, and all the good stuff, all the important stuff, the better we are off today also against competition. It's never been more evident. It's never been more evident. There's no compromise there anymore. More consumer value, more competitiveness go hand in hand.
Lars?
Sure. I think for our case, it is also a matter of really working with a brand portfolio, because it was mentioned already at the beginning. While a lot of the fundamental needs are the same, some of the size of those segments, the size of those need states may vary region by region, market by market. But if you are an international player, you can still utilize your equipment and then apply it across the world. I think the consolidation and the streamlining and the taking out of cost of your supply operation will remain a challenge, but you probably want to have more flexibility built into that cost.
All right, let's try to stay with the global perspective. I have the same question, I think, for all of you, following a little bit up on this point as well. Are we seeing the global convergence, which basically means that consumers all over the world are asking the same kinds of things of the companies that you guys are representing? Are we seeing a discussion where increasingly it is global solutions to global demands? Or are we seeing, in fact, maybe the opposite even, that local and national demands are asserting themselves? How do you deal with that? Is the convergence happening? If yes, how? Lars?
I think we see some of the fundamental needs, but I still think, at least in our line of business, we see the satisfiers as being, as a need to having different satisfiers for those needs, simply because the cultural sort of interpretation of your packaging, of what really matters, will vary region by region. It will vary even within Europe. You will find massive differences in what is appealing to a consumer and what is not appealing to a consumer.
So you can't make the argument within the tobacco market, you can't make the argument that today people are more alike than they were, say, 20 years ago.
I think they are becoming more alike, but it's a very gradual journey. It's going to take not years, it's going to take decades.
All right, yeah.
It's another breaking compromise, because products, especially product platforms, solutions, technologies, IT, has to be global. Right?
Yeah.
We want to connect with people, consumers on Facebook. That's global. But the content we put in has to be local. It has to be increasingly local. People relations that most customers and most industries have are local, next door, and they still have to be local. We don't, for our sake, we don't send a Danish guy to sell roof windows in Spain. Never. And I don't think we ever will. But the solutions, the technology he brings with him, sure, that's global.
What is your experience, Crystal, in H&M? Do you experience today that people are asking for the same products around the world? Are they converging, or are you saying, no, we don't see a pattern?
We see that customers from, let's say, all the capitals, London, Copenhagen, New York, have more or less the same needs, as well as we see the same trend in the suburbs.
So the capitals are moving on one level and the suburbs are moving on another level?
Sometimes we see that it's like a global village.
All right. And to what extent do you, I mean, specifically, concretely, do you target and do you sort of say, well, we know that this will go over well in Germany, we know this will go over well in the US. Do you do that? To what extent? And to what extent are you saying we will send something out there knowing full well that sometimes it'll do better in some places and worse in others? How much do you tailor it beforehand?
We tailor a bit. I think more or less to 90% it's the same collection all over the world, but we adjusted a little bit for all countries. If you look at the German style or you look at the southern France style, it's a little bit different. But also again, we have so many collections to choose from, so you can make a mix. You can make a special mix for country to country. You can make a special mix in every city. You can adjust it within the same city, so you have customized it for every store, so to speak. We can look at it like a buffet. We are a Swedish company, so they call it a smörgåsbord. And then you just choose and mix the best way you can for your market.
Now, Mike, I mean, this notion, if you had said, 30 or 40 years ago that you could have a chain of stores selling virtually the same collection, up to 90% the same collection around the world, saying we know what people want now and we can sort of lead the fashion, we can lead the brand here, people would have said, no, local tastes are going to vary far too much for that. Is this due to the success of a single company that this works for H&M, in their case that they've found a niche, or is this really a pattern of the future that other companies can move here and they will?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we need to separate on a category level here. It's very different. So if I think about the clients I've worked with personally within the food sector, it's very, very different. And we have few, you wouldn't believe it, but we have actually very few global brands if you look at the value of food that is sold over the world. Obviously, everybody knows McDonald's, but even McDonald's has failed in India with their beef, right? So, it's amazingly, when you look at the numbers, it is actually very local. But I also believe in what was said over here, that you need to have a consolidated back end, right? So as a global company, if you're going to survive, you need to have global sourcing, global production facilities, but you need to differentiate your go-to-market approach. Both how you talk to customers and consumers, but also the products and the packaging.
Are we seeing increasingly, I mean, the point was made that these are large companies within their markets, many of them global brands. Are we seeing increasingly that the rules that can apply to Carlsberg or that can apply to H&M, global players in many ways, are a different set of rules than will apply to national and local retailers? Essentially, that these guys will need strategies that are way different from national actors.
Yeah, that's a tough question, because again, I need to differentiate and de-average, because it really depends on what industry you are in.
Yeah.
But I would say that it is very, very difficult to get success as a global brand if you're not known to the consumers in the country. You need, I mean, I've seen trade structures where you simply can't get into the market if you don't have local adaptation or local knowledge on the brands.
All right, Jens.
No, just from a global brand perspective, we are working with global brand strategies, but the local interpretation and the way we choose to bring the strategy to life in local cultures differs. But it all plays up against.
Can you give us an example of that, where you are saying this is a striking example of local differentiation?
So for us, it's about participating in conversations. For us, it's about being relevant and meaningful to the consumer. So they will actually start to talk about us through their connected networks. So when we pick up a topic, a cultural topic, let's say around friendship, so the next thing you will see from Carlsberg is a conversation around friendship, how to be a stand-up guy for your mates. That is a cultural thing, because that differentiates, from Denmark and the way you behave as a friend, let's say in China. So we are building flexible and modular strategies that enables local cultures to take it and execute up against that. But it still plays up against the same strategy of the brand, same global strategy of the brand.
I have 3 questions now from the floor. We'll start here. Somewhere there was one. Hey, there we go. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Eric. I'm studying Masters in International Business. I have a question for Jacob. You said that 80% of the Chinese customers are saying that they're buying products because of ethical and sustainable decisions. Do you see that reflected in the sales number? Is just that fluffy talk from the consumer?
I was referring to the Edelman report, and they question consumers, and I think what's important is the intention. I don't personally believe that 8 out of 10 Chinese every day ask themselves, should I get this one? Not yet, but the intention is there, the wave is there. No question about it, and it's very strong. And what's interesting is that it's stronger. It has surpassed outside Europe, in the third world, fast-growing world, it has surpassed Europe. That's what's interesting.
All right, next question. There was one here, I think from somewhere. And we had one here as well, but we will start. Somebody, there we go. This gentleman, stand up, sir, please do. And then we'll come right back to you. Yes?
My name is Thomas. I'm doing a master's in applied economics and finance. I was wondering, you're talking a lot about CSR and ethical behavior of firms. Do you think this is sort of a minimum requirement from consumers, or do you think it is something that can give companies a competitive advantage still?
All right, excellent question. CSR, is this a minimum requirement? Will a consumer expect every single company with he or she engages to be socially responsible, or is this really something that can give a company an edge? Hanne?
I think it's both, actually, because I think it is definitely a minimum requirement, because the whole interest in looking behind what you're buying and the product and who's behind it is definitely there. And I think for some consumers, it is more important than for others. So for us, for example, if you look at the whole organic category, that's a category that is consumed typically by people who have an even higher interest. And therefore, there are consumers that value it more than others. And if you are particularly good at it, then you can attract those consumers to particular products. Arla, for example, or you can say in Denmark is one of the highest, or markets with the highest consumption of organic in the world. And it's clear that if you are strong in organic, then you will have a strong market. So it is both, I think.
Are you seeing competitors in the market where you are who are saying, we don't care? We don't do corporate social responsibility, we don't do the environment thing. Are there companies who simply decide to say, we'll opt out of all that and be all about price and quality?
I think even if you have made that decision, I'm not sure you would say it.
All right.
but I think I think there's a difference in the priority that companies are giving to it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. And is this sort of reflected one-to-one in the marketplace? Is the marketplace rewarding those who are more responsible, or?
Again, in some categories, as was said earlier, I think in some categories, yes. In other categories, perhaps it's lower down the hierarchy in terms of decision making. All
right, let's stay with the corporate social responsibility for a minute there, Jens. What is your line there? I mean, you were talking about how you tailor this marketing specifically to different countries. What about corporate social responsibility? Do you need a national strategy there as well for every single market?
We definitely need a corporate social responsibility strategy, but I believe it's integrated. It should be integrated in all the other activities of the brand.
Yeah.
Because then it can actually become a competitive advantage. And I just want to point out that we're talking about consumers. It's equally important for the company to be attractive as an employer. So through our CSR initiatives and our CSR profile, you guys think, hey, that's a place where I really want to be, where I really want to be, that in turn can become a competitive advantage because we're getting the best brains.
All right, let's stay with that point for a moment. Are you saying that essentially there's a linkage here between the consumer's decision saying, with the statistics that Jakob mentioned, I want this to be ecologically safe. At the same time, I believe, of course, if the product is good for me, the company is likely good as well. And so essentially you can't make sort of the distinct border between when it's CSR and when it's a consumption decision, because all of these things have to come together.
So when it comes to Carlsberg, so Carlsberg is the name of the company, but it's also the name of the brand. I do believe that in the view of the consumer or the people out there, the borders between the brand and the company is blurred. And they kind of come together. So the actions of the company has an effect on the perception of the brand and vice versa.
Is this true, Crystal? When people bring in their old clothes to H&M this week, are they thinking about themselves and their consumption behavior, or are they thinking about you guys and where you are getting clothes produced? What salaries do you give people? What working conditions do you offer them? Are they concerned with themselves? Or are they concerned with you as a company?
Probably both.
Yeah,
I think. But I agree with Jens. I think that the consumer will look at brands like they look at people. Either they like or they don't like. So I think it's really important for companies to be sympathetic, to be, of course, ethical. I think it's a must. It's a must for us.
All right, Jakob, and then I'll go to Lars.
Yeah.
Jakob first.
I think it's already difficult, and it will be increasingly difficult to make that distinction.
Yeah.
Because it's old-fashioned to say we sell a product, and the rest we do is something over here.
Yeah.
And if you take a consumer perspective, the reason that I don't need, as a consumer, I don't just need a product. Being local, I need a product with the right level of service. I demand from companies that they help me manage the information overload. So I need the product, I don't need instructions, I just need it to work. That's part of the Apple secret, right? Because there's no hassle, and you would never distinguish there between the product and the services around it. And if companies are not up to, we don't just sell a product, manufacturers sell a product, we provide the whole shebang around it, then they better get used to it, because that will come more and more, and the consumers are ruthless. They are so impatient, and if they don't like you, if they don't like product or brand, pooh, you're exposed on the internet.
All right, Lars?
Just want to reinforce some of what is already being said, but I do think that it was pointed out to some consumer segments having a strong CSR platform and strategy makes a lot of sense. To other segments, it makes a little less sense or is important to them. But if you do not have one, and all consumer segments will react negatively if you engage in child labor or you pollute something, then you will get a reaction not just from the people to whom CSR matters when you manage positively, but if you fail to do so in a responsible way, you'll get penalized by the whole market, irrespective of what segment they belong to.
All right, there's a question here. This gentleman, yes, stand up. The microphone will be right with you. One more question here. If I haven't seen you guys, raise your hands. There we go. Sir.
Thank you. I'm Johan. I study international business here at CBS. So Clement and you, Hanne, concluded previously that there's this polarization of the consumers. There's, environmentally, socially conscious, and there's a more economically conscious consumer. From your point of view, with your brand, how will you handle that there's this polarized segmentation of consumers, and can your brand handle those two segments, or will you have to focus your attention?
All right, good question, Hannah, and I'll send the question to a couple of other people. Hannah first.
I think, just to be absolutely clear, I think the polarization, or let me start in another place. Ethical behavior and sustainability is, for me, a kind of a basic that everyone needs to master. I think the polarization, for me, is more into the needs that are driving consumption. So, to give you an example, we see some needs that are very driven by health and the need to be healthy. We see some needs that are very driven by the creation of food and creation of a meal in our industry. Health is not so much the agenda, but being able to provide a good meal for your family is a bigger need. So I think the polarization is more on the actual need that's driving consumption. I don't think the polarization is necessarily so much on whether you are interested in sustainability or not. If that makes sense.
Christel, do you see an option there? Because when you were saying essentially, that seems to be the dilemma. On the one hand, we are saying, well, a company needs to make ethical choices. You can't hide. This was Jakob's point. You can't fool people. At the same time, Hanne is saying if there are different segments, if there are people who simply because they don't have as much money or they have different preferences, if they are saying these issues aren't as important to us, can you basically service them at the same time that you were saying, well, there are other people here for whom it is important?
I think so. We in H&M, we think it's important to develop ourselves and to constantly improve. So the aim is that we offer the best customer offer at a very, very good price, at the same time being ethical. So that we are ethical is not meaning that the price will go up. We have to stay at the same affordable price, but then, of course, the garment will be produced in in a decent way.
And it's not an option for you guys with your business model. It's not an option to say, well, we will go upscale in this part of the store. We will take this here. You need to have sort of one unitary brand. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, we stay true to our brand. That is fashion and quality at the best price.
All right, excellent. There was a question here. I think if you stand up, yes, the microphone will be with you, and we will continue up here.
Hi,
Afterwards,
my name
please.
is Sarah. I'm just thinking, recognizing that you're management level, executive level, you all agree that the CSR and sustainability is important, but I'm thinking how? Because how do you measure it? What control systems or incentive structures is in place? Because it's easy to measure the profitability and the performance money-wise, but how do you measure that, and how do you actually do it in your companies, and not just talk about it? Because that's, I think all consumers like you talking about it, but how do you do it?
All right, excellent question. We'll start with Jacob.
The only right way to do it is ask your customers. What do you think? How important is it to be ethical, environmental, and how are we doing against your needs and against competing offers? It's an important KPI, and it will be more important going forward. Then at the back end, we measure and we make accounts and how much CO2 and blah, blah, blah. That's nice too, but the real important is, in the end, how are we perceived by all our customers out there?
Lars?
I think you can measure, you can do a lot of things, you can put metrics and incentive systems in as one way. I think what really does matter is if you manage to breed a corporate culture where you generally act responsible, because that will filter through, that will go direct, basically the way each individual within a big organization will act and behave. So I think a lot of it has to be culturally driven, and then you can reinforce with some of the programs. But it starts with the individual.
Crystal?
We own the whole value chain from production to selling, and therefore we control all steps in our value chain. So we know for sure that we produce in a good way, socially, economically, and environmentally. And we have a lot of screening systems to answer your question, both internal and also external auditors that visit all our factories to check that everything is done in the right way. And we know that the impact is biggest in this start of the chain and in the end of the chain, with the consumer, the way they treat the garments, the way they wash it, iron it or not iron it, etc. So this is where we also have the impact and also and that's exactly why we also now has decided to interact directly with the customers.
All right, Jens, and then Hannah. Jens?
So just a short build in terms of a specific question around measurement. So all of our CEOs and executives do have specific CSR objectives built into their performance plan. So they are evaluated up against their success rate within those specific CSR initiatives in the markets that they manage.
All right, Hannah?
Yeah, I guess just one additional message. In Arla, we've made a commitment to becoming the most sustainable dairy company in the world. No smaller than that. And we've made this clear with a statement called Closest to Nature. So we actually also measure the naturalness of our products. You know, to what extent have we removed additives and flavorings, etc., that people don't want to see in their products today? I think the question you're really asking is how do you make this happen? And I think for us, I can honestly say that the most important thing for us has been to have a CEO who dream about this at night, and who has no intention of letting it go. That changes an organization because it's important to him, so it becomes important to everyone.
All right, Crystal.
I totally agree, Hannah, and so do H&M. We have Karl Johan, who always who also dreams about it at night, I'm sure. But what I wanted to say is, to come back to your question, that every year we have a sustainability report that is even thicker than the annual report. So it comes in April. I'm sure that everybody has the access from the internet, and I think it's published in 20 languages.
All right, here we go. Next question.
My name is Diana, and I have a question to Maj-Britt. I would like to know, would you say that CSR is as critical in industries like food industries, where the consumers just purchases directly the product, compared to, for instance, pharmaceutical industry, where you can get a prescription from a doctor? Is for them the CSR as important?
All right, Maj-Britt.
Thank you for the question. So in BCD, we actually have a big research unit only working with sustainability and CSR. And it's one of the products, so to say, that is selling like hotcakes at the moment. If I look at the clients that are buying these products or this concept from us all over the world, which, by the way, is about how do I set it up, how do I manage it, it's not only the food companies. Of course, there is a lot of focus because you have a consumption and you have a consumer. But if I look at the other categories, as for example healthcare, and we see how consumers are connected and they are online and they write about your product. If somebody finds out about a production method or some additive, I'm sure that's not happening in healthcare given the strict controls, but still the attitude and the thinking around the brand, no matter industry, I would say for a global company is a table stake, and you need it in your strategy as you said, a part of the global corporate strategy actually.
Now, before we go back to the questions, Jens, let me have a question for you here. I mean, what we've seen in the tobacco market, of course, over the last 30 years is basically, whereas 30 or 40 years ago it was the done thing to smoke, everybody did it. If you didn't, you had a reason for not doing it. And of course, that has changed. We've seen it in Denmark, we've seen it in places like the United States, where it's more difficult to get cigarettes than to get a handgun. What if the same thing happens to alcohol? What if something happens, we see the debate now currently in Russia that you guys are dealing with as well, Russia being an important market for you. To what extent are you preparing for the kind of onslaught or the kind of criticism that the tobacco companies started experiencing 30 years ago? Because of course back then, no one would have said that smoking could change its place in society, change its position the way it has.
So that's absolutely correct. It's a threat that we have to work with. We call it dark markets.
Dark markets?
Dark markets.
All right.
So meaning when our marketing parameters are being gradually taken away from us, like you see in Russia, we need to be able to bring our brands to life in different and more creative ways towards the consumer. So we are definitely, it's a strategic imperative for us to work with a dark market strategy.
And do you share, I mean, some of the points that Lars made at the beginning where he almost said, we know that we have an ethical issue. We know that people will look at a tobacco company in a specific way. There are questions, accusations that we have to answer, and we basically have to make them part of our starting position. Do you have the same notion? Do you sort of start off saying, well, we've got some explaining to do before we can sell beer, or are you still in a very different place from the tobacco companies?
So I'm not here to talk about the tobacco industry, and I do believe tobacco and beer are two completely different categories. That's
a very precise way of answering the question, I guess.
We think we have a fantastic product that is basically all natural without any additives, and if consumed moderately, it's a part of living a good life. So I think the positive approach to the market and the stories we tell to our consumers will take that.
But do you need to engage directly? I mean, if it comes to it that there was a public debate about the health effects even of moderate drinking, the way we've seen with the tobacco debate over the last 30 years, would you guys have to come out and say, well, rather than building, branding campaigns and building communities and sort of building a culture around our brand and our company, we need to go out and engage. If people have criticisms to make, we need to answer those, and we sort of need to engage. You made the point when I'm asking because you made the point about dark markets, where you are essentially saying in a place like Russia at the moment where they are trying to reduce the level of alcohol consumption, you are forced to being innovative and come up with other ways of branding and of reaching consumers. To what extent do you need to spend time on engaging those people who have criticisms to make?
Quite a lot. So it's not something I really work on directly. However, we have stakeholders that we manage in different ways.
All right.
So the governance and NGOs are managed in a certain way, and then my job is to talk to consumers in a balanced and moderate way. We have a program within our brand that is all about responsible drinking.
Yes.
Right. So really making you guys aware that, hey, too much alcohol, too much beer is not cool. You know, you're not fun to be with. You're not going to score tonight. You know, it's one of those. So that are the kind of initiatives that we are talking to our consumers about, as well as we're trying to tell, of course, positive stories about the brands to build the love for our brands versus our competitors.
Lars, what can the alcohol, and this is not just Carlsberg, of course, what can the alcohol companies learn from you guys and your experience from the last 30 years in this area?
Well, I don't know what they can learn, but I think when you look back on the tobacco industry in totality, we started talking about dark markets about 20, 25 years ago. That was the moment they banned TV advertising. There was a drama at the time within the industry saying, oh shit, tobacco is going to die. As I told you, there's still a sales of 5,500 billion cigarettes every year. That's 25, 30 years later. But there is increasing regulation, and that will keep changing its face. We still talk about dark markets within the tobacco industry. Now we're just talking about a display ban. We are talking about not being able to engage with retailers or consumers in other ways. I'm absolutely with Jens. We have our own challenges in terms of how do you build brands in that context. It is just, don't think that it is an end point. It is a journey over time. And that journey, I think, could hit other industries. You can look at the confectionery industry. You can look at the fat industry or food industry with high fats. It's all about trying to regulate behavior. And to what extent and at what speed it comes, I think, well, it's really, a lot of it is politically driven more than anything.
All right, excellent. Next question, I think we had one somewhere here. Or even several. I have somebody down. There we go, right at the very back. Stand up and the mic will be right with you. There we go.
Hi, my name is Mark. I would like to take the panel debate over to another category. Since the headline is embracing the modern consumer, I would like to discuss the element from going from a transaction-based approach to a more relationship approach. You earlier stated about the modern day consumer being more critical, involved, how the information society have made it possible for consumers to gain a better information. So how do you see, or how do your companies try to gain a better relationship with your current customer clientele?
And try just to describe to us, give us 2 words about what you see as being the difference here. I mean, if it's true that we are moving from, if I understood you, a transaction-based to a relation-based relationship between consumers and companies, what does that mean?
Well, at the moment you see organizations creating loyalty programs, having social media platforms to be able to be in direct contact with your customer clientele. So elements like this.
All right. Okay, excellent question. And let me ask you, and let me get you to relate a little bit to this point, because, I mean, the kind of products that you are selling are, of course, very different. I imagine that someone who buys a window spends a certain amount of time thinking about it, making a choice, making a decision, clothes certainly. And then we have all the fast-moving consumer goods, the point you made. And what is the difference, really, between the consumption decisions that are made here, the amount of time and the amount of consideration that goes into them? Is the kind of relationship building, community building that we just heard about, is it more important for some of your companies than it is for others? Christel?
We have been working with loyalty programs for many, many years. And we have to be, of course, you have to be present where the consumers are. And we have to be present today. It's required that we are accessible 24/7, 365 days a year. We have been working with the catalog distant shopping for many years. We bought an old-fashioned mail order company back in the 80s, and there we founded a lot of principles working with directly with the customer. So this loyalty program and interacting directly with the customer, we have been doing for many years. But of course, time has changed, and it's another dialogue.
Where's the digital dimension in this? I mean, in terms of going to a physical store and actually looking at the clothes, buying them there, and building loyalty in that sense and getting to know the shop from doing that. And then in terms of where you guys are and saying, well, how much of this can we do online? Is there a culture change taking place there?
No, I think sometimes you like to go and visit a physical store. You like to feel, taste, and try.
Taste?
Yeah, so, you know,
all right.
Taste. Or you can say test.
Okay, all right. Okay,
yeah.
Yes.
At other times, but this is a new thing, you know, you can eat it. No. At other times...
We're right back to the smorgasbord, I guess. Yeah.
At other times, it's more convenient just to shop from the couch. So I think it's going to be both. And of course, the stores should be inviting and exciting. We should offer something in our stores that you cannot get on the internet. So we have to be attractive and to we talk about that the customer should feel at home in our stores.
Yeah. Jakob, what difference does it make that when you buy a window, you are expecting it to last for a long while? I mean, in terms of this saying, is this a transaction, is this a relationship thing? Is that a choice for your company, even to think of it as a transaction rather than a longer-term thing?
Yes, very much so. The average homeowner in the Western world interacts in a buying decision with us 2, 1, 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah.
Max in a lifetime. So the way we have historically directed our attention towards him and her is branding. And once engaged, it's only product experience. It's installed, it works, it lasts a lifetime, it's great, we love it. That's consumer marketing for us in the past. Our day-to-day marketing and sales go to the professionals, those who help the consumers, the installers, the specifiers. They take decisions every week, some every day, some several times per day.
Yeah.
And for them to be net promoters of us, that's the core of what we do, and it's actually where we spend 80% of our field resources, if you look at it. But the world is changing, right? We went online several years ago, and we sell a lot of it's mainly accessories online, and it's huge on the one hand. At the same time, we still need our traditional channels, so we're actually helping them to get online. And as you can imagine, building materials, some of them are pretty conservative. You know, we've never done it. Internet will never, it's a fad, it'll pass. And we're actually helping them, creating shop-in-shop solutions and telling them, if you only ship our product, if you only move our box, you'll be out of business someday. You have to have a value-added services. A lot of them do, but those who don't better get online, and they better get into servicing the customers with something more.
Well, I mean, does this change your business model? Because in the sense, the more you can interact directly with the consumer, the greater the risk for your partners there, that they will put, you will put them out of business. They might look then to other suppliers and say, you know, how is this changing? Because this really is a question of sharing the market, not with your competitors, but with people who have previously been, whatever, your partners.
When we went online direct, I mean, we were accused of being the devil himself.
Yes.
Because you've never done that. Why are you doing that?
I'm not sure the devil produces Windows.
It's 10 years ago. We still explain why we did it.
Yeah.
More and more get it, but it'll go on for years and years. And it's just the cold, it's about illustrating the cold facts. Say, we don't do it to annoy you, but if we don't do it, somebody else will, and your business will be gone anyway. So you need to change your business, and we need to change ours. And it poses a lot on our organization. Velux in the past didn't touch the consumer other than the brand. Now we have to engage. Now we have the opportunity again to collect a lot of information on how they act and behave in our shops, on social media, and so forth. And it's involving more and more, hundreds of people in the organization.
Wait, I mean, this question goes to the core a lot, and we heard about it, the social media and how they're changing behavior. Are there successful examples in the world of companies who say, much like the people that Jakob just described, we don't believe in it, we will just spend all our time and attention on producing the best possible goods, and whether there's a community there, what the consumers think, we will leave that be, that is not our plan. If the product is good enough, they will come. Is anyone doing that? Is anyone successful with it?
Yeah, now I don't want to generalize. It's a very difficult question.
Well, you are a consultant, aren't you? I think you're pretty good at generalizing.
Yeah, but if you're a consultant, you also need, you need to de-average every answer. No, so what I think about the question, which is a very good question, is no matter who you are, you need to be able to engage with your customers and your consumers online in some way or the other. So whether you're selling directly to consumers or whether you have a customer service center or a call center or an online setup, consumers, those that at least I would say are successful, and even if they don't have an online channel, are communicating to the consumers. And I would also point out that one thing, I don't know how many of you have heard the term big data. So big data is a huge trend that we see and that we also work with in BCG. We actually see this as a huge opportunity for, especially within our retail clients, but also our consumer FMCG clients and consumer products clients, to collect a lot of data to find out where are your customers and consumers moving, what are the trends that are out there, and how do we act on them fast enough. So I would see it as an opportunity rather than a threat. I would build an online engagement any day.
Now, one of the difficult things about this discussion always seems to me that the strong brands are the brands who are strong because they are strong. They're easier to maintain because they are strong brands. So when we discuss Carlsberg or when we discuss Coca-Cola or something, we already know what are we talking about. There is something there to maintain. To what extent are these companies, once they are above a certain size, are they able to maintain this on their own? I mean, when we heard Jens, for instance, with the examples of Carlsberg's community building, can they decide, can H&M decide with the bringing of the Old Clothes event week, can they decide, this is how we do business, this is how we market ourselves, and we can make that decision because we have a brand already? In other words, are there options that are available to these companies because they're already brands that for smaller companies who aren't brand names who are operating in different markets just wouldn't be there, they wouldn't be open or accessible?
Yeah, as I said, I still think you cannot, no matter how big you are, if we look at Apple, I would say probably Apple is one of the most successful consumer products companies in the world. Look at how they are interacting with their consumers, not only in their own brand retail stores, but also online. I think that's the best example that I would give, that you have to be there with your customers, your consumers.
Hannah?
I think for us the biggest thing is, this forces you to listen. We've been, and I'm sure everyone has been in a kind of push mode. We push out the communication that we'd like to push out on our brands and tell people about.
Yeah.
I think the biggest change here is that you have to move away from pushing and turn around and listening. And if you don't do that, even if you're a big brand, what goes on online can kill your brand overnight.
How surprised are you? Because I mean, the kind of products that you manufacture and that you sell, well, people might say that's easy. People buy it, they use it. Maybe they are not too conscious about it. How surprised are you when you sort of start mining the big data that Mike was saying, mining what the consumers actually think? How much do you discover from that listening process?
You discover a lot, and I think you need to be aware of it, but also it's a massive opportunity to get information about what people think about your products, and we can use it proactively also on innovation. We do a lot of testing of new products online. So it's a massive opportunity to do so.
All right, excellent. Next question, I had one there. There we go, sir. Please stand up.
Hi, thank you. My name is Sikandar, and I'm an exchange student here from Malaysia. And you guys are representing like global companies, and most of your companies are they produce their products in different countries too. Like Carlsberg Malaysia, they produce Carlsberg in Malaysia too. So there are certain countries where customers do not prioritize CSR and environmental friendly and sustainability. So what is your approach in those countries? Like, do you maintain your standard of CSR or take advantage over there?
All right, Jens, you made the point that you were saying that you sort of cater to different national audiences in different ways. What about CSR? Are there places in the world, Malaysia is the example, where you can say, well, here the standards are lower, and so our CSR standards can be equally lower?
I don't know.
No.
I believe we have pretty high CSR standards. It's part of the global strategy. If the local CEO decides in his local market to place that topic a bit lower on his agenda, it's his choice. I can't answer and mention any specific markets.
All right, Lars, let me just ask you, I mean, when you're talking about the kind of global competition situation that you are in, I mean, with this example, I guess that none of you guys will say, yes, there are countries in the world that we just don't care about. But the global competitors that you are up against, and of course this is reality there, in every single of these markets there will be other competing companies that might not be as CSR conscious as you guys are. I mean, what is the challenge there? Because we talk constantly in this country about competitiveness, cost, price levels and so forth. Are you increasingly facing competitors who are not as concerned with CSR and thus have lower costs?
Okay. I think there are many questions into this one, but let me try and answer. First of all, I think the global competitors are exactly global competitors, and they wouldn't risk sort of the credibility of a brand name simply to jeopardize a small cost saving in a country where maybe the consumers there do not appreciate the importance of CSR in the same way. For our own sake, I can say we apply the same safety and health standards to the factory and the production facilities we have in those countries as we do to the one we have in the Western world. So I think most of the international companies will apply a base set of principles around the world that would be more or less the same. But I'm speculating, I can only talk for ourselves. But to me, the risk of not doing it is too high.
Yeah.
I agree. First of all, the consumers outside Europe, they care about it too. I've said that. Any failure will transfer across. I mean, you mentioned the supply chain, Crystal, in H&M. If you screw up somewhere in China, we will know about it, right? So therefore alone, don't do it. And even there, we can create a competitive advantage. And the good sign is that 10, 20 years ago, you had premium, high-cost producers, and you had low-cost producers. And no way you could be both. What several of these companies have managed, H&M is one, you're the leading brand, and you're the lowest-cost producer, at least of any magnitude. More and more will go that way. So you have to go hand in hand, and a funny sign is that even the copycats in some of those countries where we say it's not important, they are even starting to greenwash now, because even they see it, well, we better get green. So don't shortcut.
All right, there we go. There was a question there, I think.
My name is Naima, and I saw last you were quite quiet when the conversation was about social media. And is it because I know that I'm not sure, you're not allowed to advertise, so do you feel left behind on the social media? Because they just talked about that you have to be out there and you have to be close to your consumers. So do you feel left behind on that? And
you can't actually use a touchscreen and smoke at the same time, you see. That's
true.
Let me try and answer that, because it is first of all, it is very much about where in the world you are. Certainly within the EU, we are very much restricted by legislation from engaging online. In the US and in Asia, you can do a little more. And we are actually pretty active online with the brands we sell locally in the US. We do follow, because it's not because we can't actively engage. Sometimes it would be nice, but so yes, I do feel restricted from that perspective. But what you can still do is you can listen and you can follow some of the dialogue that goes out on there, because we as a manufacturer cannot participate doesn't mean that the dialogue stops. There's lots of chat forums, lots of conversation going out about very enthusiastic cigar smokers, pipe smokers, and I'm sure you can, if you go into Google, you can find 5 or 6 different chat rooms for some of our brands. We just cannot participate, but we can certainly follow the dialogue, and we can take that into the way we work the brands.
All right, excellent. Now time is running short. I have now a number of questions. I will ask you to phrase them shortly and distinctly for short and distinct answers. We'll start with the gentleman there, and we'll move down here, and we'll see how many we'll get to fit in. Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, thanks to the whole organizing committee. Great work. And thanks to the 6 people up there. Nice to see you here today. It's very American, but I'm Danish, so I don't know why I said that. I have a quick question. We haven't looked at the differentiator between being female and male. How is that different in your line of business?
All right, what are the gender differences here? Lars, is there a gender difference in terms of your customers?
We're talking still consumers, right?
Excuse me?
We're still talking about consumers, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yes. I wish I had as many female consumers as I have male consumers. I mean, if you look at the cigar business, if I talk to you, are there any female smokers in here?
They won't admit it.
They won't admit it, okay, fine. If I tell you that would you like to smoke a cigar, you would probably say, nah, not really sure, because it's probably too strong, and my granddad smoked once, I remember that. If I asked you, would you like to smoke a tobacco product that was smooth tasting and made from 100% natural tobaccos, it would be a little more inviting. I think some of the challenge we have is to redefine some of those products so they appeal to also female cigarette smokers.
All right,
absolutely.
Jens, a variation on the same question. When you go out and you build on the camaraderie, and you came there with the example of saying what is it like to be a stand-up mate and so forth. I mean, clearly then you are targeting a male group. I mean, what does that do to the female audience?
So yes, there's a clear skew toward males within our business, within our category. We would love to have more female beer drinkers. For some reason, it's a male drink. We are doing a lot of innovations to offer propositions that are attractive to women.
All right. Can you be more specific? No. No, but you're saying there is a market there and it can be developed.
Of course, yes.
Maybe women don't have as much reason to get other people drunk as men do. I guess that could be part of it. Hanne Søndergaard, what about you? I mean, the consumption choices in your line of business, who makes those?
Well, first of all, we have them all. But in most cases, I guess still we see the actual shopping decision is made by women, but the consumption is made by everyone.
All right. Okay. Next question. As we move down here, I think I had one somewhere around here. Is that right? Yeah. There we go. Sir, just stand up. So you, sir, and then this gentleman on the other side.
Thank you.
Please. Yes.
I'm Hans, and I'm third-year IB student. I was wondering, since you all are global companies operating in many different markets, and you all want to have the best CSR strategy possible, how do you tackle with the, apparently it sounds like the consumer has gotten very sensitive. How do you tackle doing business in countries, developing countries, for instance, where the conduct of business is so different to in the West, where bribery you nearly have to use to be able to exercise business in those countries? I mean, you said you used Apple as an example, that Apple is doing great, but at the same time they had the Foxconn scandal, and it didn't really seem to hurt their sales numbers. So it seems like you can conduct dirty business in some countries if you're big enough and have a big enough brand without the consumer really being sensitive enough.
Just to get enough questions in, just one answer from the panel. Jakob, I'll give
Yeah, I think we talked about being environmental. You mentioned bribery. It happens, and one here asked about, well, your management, how do you get the organization to act? It's about having a non-exception culture. And it's not just KPIs, it's culture. It's about everybody in the company, even those who are out there and who, if they did something, we wouldn't know about it for days. Even those guys, they are value-driven and they don't do it, even if the competitors do it. So yes, we do walk away from some deals where certain things go on. No exception. That's the only way.
All right, next question. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Guillaume Knudsen and I'm an entrepreneur. I have a question for Scandinavian Tobacco. There was a guy that mentioned that in some countries they don't have the same CSR policies and whether or not you take advantage of that. Do you believe that it's taken advantage of low CSR policies when you are able to use social media more in some countries? I mean, I presume that the European Union has set restrictions on you for a good reason. Thank you.
Lars?
That's a tough. I think that is, honestly, I think the social media dialogue where you can engage is as much a marketing tool as it is abusing people. I think if you ask any consumer around the world, they would understand that they are the adult smoker. If you ask any adult smoker around the world, they would know that there are health considerations on this. If you look at some of the restrictions that are put in place in governments from around, also in developing countries, you would find that they reach actually stricter standards in some of the markets you see in Western Europe. So I think, no, I don't feel that we are abusing consumers or abusing a CSR policy simply because legislation allows us to do so. And again, one of the markets where you see the most of that is in the US, and it doesn't feel like we are abusing the American consumer.
All right.
In a way. Thanks.
Final question from the floor. This gentleman, please.
Hi, my name is Jan, and in the beginning we had the fact that, Jacob, you mentioned that consumers in China already value sustainable, environmentally friendly, organic products, and so it seems as if their consumption behavior is about to change in future. Do you already prepare for that? And do you think that you can apply the strategies you are using right now in Denmark, where people already buy these products, that you can apply these strategies to Chinese markets in about 5 or 10 years?
So are you saying, you're basically saying that whether the strategies that are being used today in the Danish European market will be the future of Asia? Yeah, excellent question, and a good one to go out on almost, Jacob. Is that a sensible thing, expectation to say, well, the Asian market will be like the European in a few years, or could it go in a completely different direction?
There are, I think you started by saying, you know, there are some local differences, and also in Arla, that they won't go away. They will be accentuated. For our business, the way business is done, the way construction is done, the value people put to our products, the sustainable living, the daylight and fresh air, it will never be the same in China as in Germany, not in our lifetime. Forget about it. There will be differences, but the national boundaries in that sense, they will not go away. Some of the themes will be the same, but at different levels. So broadly speaking, we follow the same strategies, but the implementation varies a lot, even within Europe.
All right, now our final question, Maj-Britt, I'll put this to you, and I want you to go straight back to what we discussed at the very beginning, because you made the point about saying it's about feel good rather than look good, and you sort of talked about the merger almost, I suspect, of the ecological or the environmental or the conscious consumer that we got to know before the financial crisis, and then how the financial crisis have changed us. So I just want you to spend maybe a minute on that. To the extent that we are getting back to normal, to the extent that can even be said, what do we know about how consumption and consumers have been changed by the crisis?
Yeah, so just on that, there's one thing I would like to clarify actually. Sure. in what we're discussing. So I think we're discussing different things again. I think there are some trends that came with the financial crisis that are here to stay. Whilst that is said, I still think that, for example, food companies need to have differentiated product portfolios so they can serve different needs, back to Hanne's point. So it's not that we are seeing that you can, when it goes back to normal, you will never be able to sell low price point, low quality products anymore, for example. But what I think is the key trends we've talked about today about sustainability, organic, local, are here to stay, but still we will see a big we'll still see a big demand from other segments in the markets for the other things. So the trends are there, but you need to have a differentiated product portfolio.
Is there, if people make this, I mean, if this does not become each other's opposites, if people are now making choices where they are trying to make the choice that it's both the right one for them as a consumer to get most value for money with the H&M example, and at the same time make a choice that is the right CSR choice and the right environmental choice and so forth. Could that be a trend that we are seeing, that people are expecting also sort of in light of what we heard these guys saying, that you can't separate it out? You can no longer make the argument and say, well, there is one sort of pillar of CSR and there's one pillar of personal health and safety and so forth, that really to people it's part of the same mix.
Yeah, yes, so that's very much what I meant when I said these are becoming table stakes. So any global company needs to have, in our view, a proper CSR strategy and a view on sustainability. And of course, it's not just having a strategy, it's living it. And when that is said, you can still have a differentiated product portfolio, so you can have different kinds of products, but the platform on which these products are produced and the principles will still be the same.
All right, that will be the final conclusion of today. Thank you so much. Thank you to the panel and the organizers, and thank you for excellent questions.
One thing before everybody leaves, I would like to say thank you very much to the entire panel for joining us today. And thank you very much for Clement for moderating this debate. And this is only the first of many events for the case competition in general. So we have an event tomorrow with BCG, and then the remaining partners have events the entire next week, week 9. So please check up on Facebook and the program which is in front of you. And finally, thank you very much for coming.